Imagine struggling with your health for 30 years, 3 decades, and thinking that there was nothing in the world that you could do to possibly improve your situation. But in the span of just 3 months, completely turning that thinking on its head and reclaiming your health after all that time. Today, we will be speaking with someone who has lived that very life and someone who will be an inspiration for everyone who thinks that they could never do it. I am so excited to welcome Mary Montequin to the exam room here today. Mary, thank you so very much for
Hi,
being here.
Chuck. Hi, thank you.
Let's start by talking about everything that was wrong with you. I mean, let's just get the bad out of the way first. Okay. So,
Okay.
you had diabetes, correct?
Yes,
And because of the diabetes, you were legally blind.
correct.
All right. We're talking about you are overweight, high cholesterol, high blood pressure. Basically, you name it, you had it.
That is correct.
Oh man. Okay. So before we get to all the good stuff, let's talk about how it is that Mary, you got to that position. For me, I remember just kind of graduating more and more and more toward that unhealthy diet as I grew older. Started as a kid and just continued well into adulthood. Was it kind of the same thing for you?
Yeah, it really was, Chuck. I think I was thin and all kinds of fun stuff that I wanted to be when I was in my teens, in high school. But then slowly, I guess the first place that started was when I had my first child. I gained a lot of weight, thinking that I could do that. I was one of those people that thought I wasn't like anybody else. So that's not true. And I gained quite a bit of weight, I think about 80 pounds. And then just I lost a bit of it, but then just continued gradually over, 10 pounds a year, kind of just kept going up and up.
Yeah, isn't that funny? 10 pounds a year. You think of over the course of a year, that's really nothing. But then when you think about, well, 2 years, well, that's 20. 3 years, that's 30. And before you know it, you've dug yourself quite the heck of a health hole. But so you get to that. But when did you notice that it wasn't just the weight that was becoming an issue? When did you notice that it was actually starting to impact your health?
I would say about 7 or so years ago, I realized things like my back was bothering me, my knees and my joints were bothering me. I wasn't able, and also there's a lot of emotional things that go along with that. I've always been an outgoing person, very verbal, but I realized that I didn't really want to be seen, even though I was the largest person in a room. So that's kind of hard to do. And those things were bothering me. Yeah, just I had a hard time walking. Everything was just kind of painful. Everything, emotionally, physically, everything.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember those days. My goodness. And when you're living that kind of life, to think that you'd be sitting here today, feeling as well as you do, knowing that you've gone through all of these big changes, like it just seems like it's an impossible feat, but it's not. And that's why I'm so excited to have you here
Yeah.
on the show today. Let's talk about diabetes here for a second. Here, at your absolute worst, what was your A1C?
12.7.
Okay,
Yeah.
12.7. And you also, because of diabetes, had started to lose your vision as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, it seems like it happened overnight, but I don't think so. I would have trouble like on and off for about a year or so, where I would feel like my eyesight was good. I do have reading glasses, but I didn't have any glasses for anything other than that. But it would seem like things were really fuzzy, and then it would go away. So I would go and make an appointment with an eye doctor and say, "Hey, my sight just kind of comes on and off like this. Is that weird or different?" And they didn't really have much of an answer for that. They just wanted to say, "Come in and maybe we can catch you when that was happening," but that never happened. Just kind of like when your TV goes out and then you have somebody come in the room and it clears up. I would go in to see the doctor and it was fine, or so it's to say fine. But then after a bit of time, it just continued to get worse and worse and fuzzier and things I couldn't really see well at all. And then right towards my diagnosis, which was on May 18th of last year, 2021. I couldn't see. I couldn't like see the, the stop sign. I wasn't driving, things like that. And I had not attributed that to diabetes at all because I really didn't know much about it.
That must have been kind of terrifying, for
Absolutely.
you, to be losing your vision like that. When did you make the decision, like, it's really not a good idea for me to be driving anymore?
Yeah, actually, I know it sounds crazy, but really, like, there was a week before my diagnosis with diabetes that everything just went downhill. It was kind of crazy. My sight, and then I had these recurring yeast infections, which would not come. They come back over and over and over again, which now I know is because I just literally was my own bread factory. I think I just had so much sugar in my body that needed to come out. It was just insane. Yeah. So there was just a lot of things that were happening. And then I went in to see a doctor for my eyes. And my eyesight was bad like that. And they didn't have an answer for that, which was scary to me because I rely on doctors and their answers, and they didn't seem to know what to do with me. And that was the day that I was diagnosed with diabetes. So things turned around when I went to the right doctors after that.
So you've got the vision issue.
Mhm.
You were also suffering from migraines at the time as well,
Yes.
correct?
I have had debilitating migraines for years and years. I do have a cyst on the right side of my brain, and I've had 8 brain surgeries for that because it's kind of semi-inoperable. They're able to take the contents of the cyst out when it becomes very debilitating for me. The migraines, I have seizures when that happens, but they're not able to take the entire cyst wall out, and because of that, it just kind of fills back up. And then I was attributing those migraines to the existence of the cyst and all of the surgeries. But when I started this way of eating, those migraines, I haven't had one. I have little headaches here and there, but I haven't had one. So
Are you able to monitor the growth of the cyst? Do you
I
go in for
am.
regular scans?
Once a year, I'll have an MRI, and I'm actually going in for another one in about 6 weeks. So we'll see how that goes, but I will be able to see the size.
Yeah, I'll be very curious to see the results there. But I'm
Yeah.
glad right now you're certainly symptom free.
Yes.
I mean, that's got to be just a relief in itself after so many years, right?
Yes. So many years of that, and it's very painful trying to just go through your life having pain and trying to go through everything acting like everything's okay.
No question about it. Now, here's one that I think all the women right now who are watching can relate to. The trailer that my colleagues here at the Physicians Committee put up featuring a little bit of your story. You were talking about how you don't need to stick your head in the freezer anymore because you're no longer having hot flashes. I mean, were
Yeah.
these things just like wrecking your
They
day
were
too?
horrible. Yeah, they were just horrible. And we've moved here from Florida. I'm in the DC area now. So I remember, actually, this is the first winter so far, and our weather's been kind of crazy. That I would not just find a way to go outside and stand in the cold air and then start feeling better with these hot flashes. And I don't have that anymore. None of that anymore.
Okay. Boy, your life is just taking a turn for the better.
Yes.
So we've talked about all of these symptoms, but let's talk about something that is really near and dear to my heart. Every time I talk about weight loss, I talk about how just difficult it was to move. And for anybody who is in the position you were in, the position that I was in, they can certainly relate to this as well. Barely being able to walk just but a few feet without really starting to lose your breath and not feeling very well at all. You were in that position too, right?
Very much so. I have a house that has a basement and it's a finished basement. And so I go up and down those stairs. And I really was to the point where actually my husband and I were talking just a few days ago about all these changes. And he said that he had kind of resigned to the fact that he thought there was going to be a time when we would have to kind of close off that downstairs and have everything upstairs because I was not able to go downstairs. Um, So the top of our house is where, the bedroom is and the kitchen and things like that. And I would, wake up and walk to the table in the dining room and pretty much just stay there. And then that was the amount of walking I could do. We have a dog, and when it was my turn to be home alone with him, I wouldn't walk off our property with him. And now that has changed as well. And I walk 2.5 miles a day with him, or just walking, and with no problems at all, none.
Oh, that's the coolest. For me, it was something similar where it was like I could barely walk across the street, but that's what I would do. And then I found out that I could walk around the block, and then 2 blocks, and then three, and then eventually got all the way up to 5 miles. And I do hope that you can hit the 5 mile mark as well. I have no doubt the way
Yay.
you're going, that you'll be there in no time as well.
Yeah.
But gradually building up to 2.5 miles, what has that done for your confidence?
Oh, I can't tell you, and I don't want to bring myself to tears, but it's amazing the difference of being able to go from not being able to do something that I think a lot of people just take for granted, like walking, to being able to do that. And I did take time, like I would walk one extra house and then back, and then continue to do that over and over until I got to where I am now. And it's amazing. It's so limiting. I have two children. They're grown now, but I missed, because of this 30 years, so much time when I could have been out playing with them or doing things that I wanted to do. Simply because of lack of movement, because of the ability of something that I did, I chose to do for many reasons. It's just it's insane. It's incredible. And I also I look forward to walking outside in the morning, and I love to see the sun rise and the sun set. And I'm outside now when that happens, walking. It's just great.
You say, you feel like you missed out on some things with your kids, but
Mm.
have you thought now about everything that you've gained in the future, whether if grandchildren come into your life?
Yeah, I'm so happy. There's no grandchildren yet, but I'm definitely waiting for that to happen. And I am so excited. I no longer get to the point where, really, last year I kind of had resigned to the fact that this was my life, and that I was going to just die from one of these things, these diseases like obesity, or a heart attack or something like that. I'm really giving up, and I had a lack of hope. And now I don't feel that way anymore. I look forward to the fact that we're going to take vacations, and I'm going to be able to walk on the beach and all these great, wonderful things.
May 18th, 2021.
Yes.
Was that your rock bottom? That was the day that you received the diagnosis that you had diabetes.
Absolutely. I remember that day, and I'll never forget. It's kind of like an anniversary. I'll always kind of celebrate that now. And even though it was a terrifying moment when I learned about diabetes, it's kind of like a blessing, because it just turned everything around for me. And I think it takes something. For everybody has their own bottom, or their own, like, kind of light switch to go off to make changes, and that was mine. I was told on that day that I got a phone call from the doctor. Actually, I have to back up a little bit. I was having these symptoms. I was super thirsty, and I had this eyesight thing going on, and I just felt like I was falling apart. And it was during COVID, so I wasn't able to go in to see the doctor. I would do things over Zoom, and they would send me these prescriptions for that yeast infection, and go away, and then would come back. So I played doctor, like many people do on Google, and I kind of just put all those symptoms in, and it came up with diabetes being something I might have. I called my doctor and said, "Hey, can I have this test to see, just rule it out?" Because I really didn't think it was something I would have. And she at the time said, "Yeah, go ahead, come in." It was May 18th that I had that done. I promptly went out and stopped at Wendy's and had a double cheeseburger with French fries and Dr. Pepper, went home and took a nap. And when I woke up, I had a message on my phone that I did indeed have diabetes, that my A1C was 12.7, which didn't mean anything to me at the time. But then when I looked that up, apparently it's like at the top of the charts. So the doctor also prescribed several medications and said, "Go pick these up. We'll talk as soon as we can." And immediately I thought, no, I'm not going to have another thing wrong with me along with this cyst that I have. I'm not going to be the person with two chronic illnesses that I have to deal with. And I brought it on. I ate myself into this. I'm going to eat myself out of it. And I contacted the Barnard Institute because I had known about this life-saving way of living. And I immediately got an appointment with Dr. Rahman and made the change 100% right overnight, and it saved my life.
I got to go back to that trip to Wendys though. That so reminds me of the day when I was in high school and like 14 years old at the time and was put on beta blockers because my blood pressure was through the roof and being so upset by it that rather than go right to the pharmacy to pick up the pills, I instead also went to the drive-through. I think it was Burger King this time, and I loaded up on the very thing that took me to the doctors in the first place. But for you, coming back from the doctors, did you kind of get the sense that that would be your final meal, or were you just like kind of distraught, like I'm in a medical pickle, I need something to comfort me, so I'm going to go over to Wendy's?
Oh, actually, the Wendy's happened before I knew I had the diabetes.
Right,
So
right.
actually, that was because I think, I'm addicted to food, and that has not changed. It's just been that I've changed what I put in my body now. Um, and at the time, it was kind of a particularly stressful day. And yes, I had had that blood test, but honestly, I didn't think there was any way that I was going to have diabetes. But it was just a stressful day in all. And I thought, this is how I'm going to soothe myself. It's the way I always soothe myself. And that's why I had that. I just remember what I ate because that was the last time I ever did it.
You did something that is very hard to do, and I would say very rare, and that is make this transition cold tofu, as the vegans like to say. And so you had no idea at the time that that meal at Wendy's would be your final fast food meal. How did you deal with getting over that hurdle? Because as a food addict, I know that even to this day, I'll still get cravings for some of those unhealthy foods. How have you been able to manage those?
I have realized that uh, the food is always going to be my relationship with food is really important. It's as important as any relationship that I have with any person, or with my faith, or with other relationships that I have. And there's highs and there's lows, and some relationships are good and sometimes a relationship can be toxic, and sometimes you can salvage that relationship and you can fix it, or other times you got to just ditch it. So I think that with this particular relationship I have with food, food still soothes me, and it's something I do to celebrate with. We just went through the holidays, and this is the first time that I did everything 100% vegan or whole foods. And but it's a challenge. It was and is still, because this is a journey I'm on forever, to learn how to find certain foods that still hit the right spot for me. Crunchy foods or soothing foods and all those kinds of things. What I really love about this lifestyle is that I've been able to, when I put the work into finding all those different aspects of food, using the parameters that are in the whole food plant-based lifestyle, and I really don't miss anything. It was a learning experience. I did have to overcome some things. I have some family members that are kind of like junk food vegans. And I don't mean to say that in a condescending way, but I found that I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to eat all this store-bought tofuki and all that other stuff. But I don't, I eat the whole foods. And I found that honestly, there's no aspect that I can't soothe myself with or celebrate with, make a really nice birthday cake, go through Thanksgiving and make all the things that I like. It's just really have not been that hard when I allowed myself to have the ability to learn. It's just a learning curve.
Oh, yeah. And the thing about the plant-based diet is it can help a lot of things, but life is an emotional roller coaster, and you're going to have those ups, you're going to have those downs, no matter what it is that you're eating, but you're still celebrating, you're still comforting with food. So instead of going to that drive-through or whatever it was that you used to turn to, what are some of your healthier go-tos now when you're having a day?
I'm having a day. I love my junk food thing would be a can of beans. I love beans, love them. And I always have in my house ready to go, which I think is one of the biggest parts. I'm just never allow myself to get hungry. I have like a little salad bar type thing set up where there's just lots of containers with cut up vegetables and fruits and things that would go on salads. And when I have black beans and I have like a salsa mix with corn and black beans, and I use that all the time. It's available here. I can have it hot or cold. Um, I also, when I want a dessert, I make nice cream, which is bananas and some fruit with a little cocoa powder frozen. Always have little containers of that. I never leave the house without having cut up fruits or vegetables to go with me if I'm going grocery shopping. It's just a matter of planning and pre-planning and putting myself first, and knowing that that's what's most important.
Can we just take a second to just acknowledge the fact that you said, well, my junk food now is a can of beans? Wow, what a turnaround that is.
Yeah,
Isn't that wild?
absolutely.
Oh my
Really
gosh.
is wild. Really is true. And but I'm serious. It sounds crazy, but it's true.
I get it. I get it. But, if you're talking to, Mary from May 17th, 2021, and somebody told you, hey, flash forward to January and your junk food will be beans, how do you think May 17th, Mary would react to that statement?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That would have been ridiculous. And I would have rolled my eyes and thought, yeah, this person's a little off. And I can never be that way. It's too extreme, all those things. And I'm not, the person I am is not any different from May 17th to now. I mean, I still have all those desires and needs for those types of foods and all of that stuff. It's just a mindset that I've allowed myself. Also, I've allowed myself to make mistakes. Someone in one of the classes I took mentioned that I have to allow myself to, when I'm learning how to cook, maybe keep one good food out of three and the other two just toss in the trash. And that's a hard thing because you're told never to waste food, but that's been kind of a thing I've learned to do. This is something I have to learn for the rest of my life, and I'm really kind to myself about if something comes out bad or I don't want it. That's just so important.
For sure. Where do you fall now? What is your opinion of the clean plate club, where if it's on your plate, it has to be eaten?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And I have children that, I used to think that was true. So that's been a big switch around. And I have family members. We live near a lot of our family that have opposing thoughts about that. And they're like, we're going to waste food. And I'm like, no, I think I heard somewhere about trash in, trash out. So it's, if I'm not happy or satisfied, or it's not something that I know is going to be advantageous to my body, I'm just not eating it. And nobody else should be eating it anyway. So,
I got you. You mentioned family a lot. You said some of them are eating a not a whole food plant based diet, but a plant based diet
yeah.
nonetheless. Overall, though, I would imagine, given your success, they've probably been pretty supportive of everything.
Yeah, I do have a lot of support, which I'm so grateful for, because both sides, my husband's and my own side, we have every range from vegan to like completely meat eating people that don't understand any of this at all. And I've noticed, and also on my husband's side, are a lot of the adults, more than not, are suffering from diabetes and these other chronic diseases. So I see a slow change where at least they're watching what we're doing in my family. And I think it's helping them. And they also are supportive as well.
Have they started to ask you some questions a little bit? That's when you know that they're really paying attention and you've piqued
Yes.
their interest.
Absolutely. And we hosted Thanksgiving this year. And so there was a whole section of plant-based foods that was the same types of foods as the non-whole foods. And there was a crossover at one point. So now during Christmas time, I was asked to make the mashed potatoes that I made and the stuffing that I made. So they're starting to come around, and I'm really happy about that.
So they asked you to make this, which means that you know they tasted good, because if they did not, they would have never in a million years even floated that idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's cool. I gotta go back to your own transformation. I want to go back to your vision. Let's bounce around a little bit. I want to
Sure.
go back to your vision. How long after you began eating cleanly again, did it take for you to regain your eyesight?
Okay, 6 weeks, and I know that's nuts, and a lot of people might not believe it, but it was absolutely 6 weeks. I went to a new doctor for my eyes, and they wanted to, somehow for some reason, a lot of doctors ask about, if you say you're diabetic, like what medications you're on, things like that, and I would always give the same kind of expression from these doctors that don't know about this way of eating, and I'd say, no, no medicine, I'm not taking anything, I'm just eating. And when I did that, they said, but my biggest thing, I'm kind of stuttering around what I'm saying, when I was with the doctor, with the eye doctor, I said, am I going to be like this forever? I mean, I really felt like, my two questions for every doctor I went to, my kidney specialist, everything was, am I going to die? And if I do this for a few months, because that's everything I read, can I turn this around? So with the eye doctor, I was the same way. I'm like, look, have I forever damaged my eyes? And they're like, well, we really don't know. And we don't know really anything about this whole food thing. So we're just going to have to wait and see. So I had 3 different levels of prescription to wear for my sight, for distance, for midway, and for my short-term sight at that time, just to try and get through reading all these food things that I was going into the grocery store with the labels and things like that, because at the same time I'm trying to change my life around. And then 6 weeks, like almost to the day, I remember trying to switch my glasses around because I'm looking at labels or attempting to, and then looking at a chart of things about how to eat, and none of them were helping. I couldn't see, and no matter what. So my first thought was, oh my gosh, my eyes are worse. But then I realized that in changing one prescription to the other of the glasses, I could see with nothing on. And it was that moment that I thought, oh my God, I can see. I told my husband, oh my gosh, I can see. Everything's going to be better. I'm good. This is insane. It's only been 6 weeks.
That's crazy. And how fitting is it that you realize that as you were switching your pairs of glasses, it's like, can't see with them on. Let me get this other pair. But wait a minute. I mean, just what a feeling that must have been.
Absolutely. It really was. And it was absolutely terrifying. I don't think I even have a process of how bad my eyesight was, because I was trying to deal with so many things, with the diabetes and how to eat and all these things. So my eyesight was, as crazy as it sounds, not at the forefront of my mind all the time. But I know that around the 16th, 17th, I'm sorry, that no, right, yeah, about that time, I could not see my children and my husband's face. The only thing I could see was like around their eyes, like darker spots where their eyes would be. It was that bad. And then I went from that to being able to, read the small fine print that I need to read to make sure what I'm eating, if it's processed, is not a horrible thing. And in 6 weeks.
That's incredible. How long did it take for you to get back behind the wheel?
Yeah, about 6.5 weeks.
There you go.
Yeah.
Were you nervous to get back in the driver's seat?
I was not, because I have this pre-existing thing about my cyst, and when I have surgery or I have a seizure, I have to go like a year before I can drive. So I'm kind of used to being able to not drive and then drive. But yeah, it was similar to that, but I knew I was good. I would never take a chance like that.
And as we're kind of wrapping things up here, I also want to ask you, going back to your walking and being able to leave the property and getting up to 2.5 miles, but do you remember how you felt that day that you were able to complete your first mile? What were the emotions you felt that day?
Similar to turning 16 and being able to drive off my property with nobody else in the car, honestly, it was just such a freeing feeling. It was just, there's some things I just don't have words for. It's just, I kind of like with that driving experience when you're 16, it's like you just see things in the rearview mirror and you know they are always going to be in the rearview mirror. And all you have is what you see in front of you.
Just like that sense of independence again. And
Absolutely.
and I think that because you're a little older than 16 at that point, maybe you can appreciate it that much more, because as the saying goes, you don't know what you have until it's gone. And at that point, you had lost a lot of that independence. So to
Yeah.
regain that, I mean, I can see why you would say it feels like I'm 16 again, and the
Yeah.
world is once again my plant-based oyster.
Yep.
Um, and then two more. What advice, what tips would you have for somebody who's in the position that you were in and feels hopeless, like they could never succeed, they could never do what it is that you do, and maybe they're close to rock bottom as well? What advice can you offer that person?
Uh, I think I would tell them, please just have some faith in yourself and know that there's nothing special about me. I'm just a person that had this and made a choice to try this way of taking care of myself and to trust in that process. Please just give it the fact that it just takes such a short period of time. You can do this. Just hold on and handle this, because that time is going to pass whether you're eating this way or continuing down the same path you're on. So why not just take that chance? Because I'm 100% sure that it is going to work for you. 100% sure.
Two-part final question. Uh, Go back to Mary, May 17th, 2021. What did the future look like for you then? And how does that contrast with the future that you know that you have now?
Wow, good question. I had honestly resigned to the fact that I was going to die. And I know that sounds pretty crazy, but I just didn't see a way out. I had tried everything, every kind of diet or whatever. And I thought this is, even though I had the knowledge about what this kind of way of eating, I thought, I can't do this. It's so extreme. It's so crazy. And I'm so miserable and I'm in so much pain. I really just believe that. And then now I would say that I never really realized how much I wanted to live until I was convinced I was going to die. And I'm a very happy person in general, even despite all of these other things. But when you give, somebody gives you a second chance and you learn how you can do this yourself. Nobody is fixing me with a pill or anything. I'm completely hopeful and empowered by what I can do myself. And yeah, that is what I would say.
There we go. Sorry about that. The coolest thing about all of this, though, Mary, is flash forward now 12 years. And it's been about 12 years since I began my health journey here. The feeling that you have today never goes away. The gratitude only builds. And to this day, I talk about this all the time. Every morning I wake up and it's kind of like that pinch me, like, is this really my body? Am I really this type of healthy individual now? I still so much identify with the 420-pound Chuck, that the gratitude for the person who is waking up in the morning now to see those beautiful sunrises that you're talking about. It's just unbelievable. It's almost like never waking up from the best dream possible. So you're gonna really love what the future holds for you. And I wish you nothing but the absolute best. And I do believe that your story is going to inspire a lot of people who are listening, who are watching today, and hopefully members of your own family as well. Everybody's watching. And when, like we said, when those questions start to come, that you've kind of piqued their interest a little bit. What does she know that I don't? and then you share the knowledge, you kind of pay it forward. So
Mm.
you are a true inspiration. And Mary, I could not be any happier for you.
Thank you so much, Chuck. I really appreciate it. And I thank you for what you do because you're definitely a facet of the things I do. I listen to the exam room all the time.
If your health IQ is a couple of points higher than it was a few minutes ago, go ahead and like this video or subscribe to the YouTube channel. And to take it even higher, head over to Apple Podcast or wherever you get your favorite shows. Look for the Exam Room by the Physicians Committee. Hit the subscribe button there as well and help to make your world a healthier place.